Hi, I'm Antonia. This is Universally Me. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Antonia Carlotta, and check out my Patreon where I post bonus content plus pictures and memorabilia from my family's private collection. I'm really excited to be doing a video about another horror legend. I know I say this every time, but it blows my mind that I am just now getting to some of the staples of early Hollywood. And I probably should have made this video years ago, but I think I got a little overwhelmed or maybe nervous that I wasn't going to do this person justice, but I just gotta try. And it feels like the perfect time because I've been spending the last few months in Colorado Springs with my grandparents, and that's exactly the town this person is from. Today's video is about the man of 1,000 faces, Lon Chaney. Leonidas Frank Chaney was born April 1st, 1883 in Colorado Springs to Frank and Emma. And right off the bat, how perfect that he was born on April Fool's Day. His grandfather was a congressman, and his grandmother founded the Colorado School for the Deaf and Blind. Both of Lon's parents were deaf and mute, so as a child, Lon learned to communicate through sign and pantomime and facial expressions. When he was in 4th grade, his mom got sick, and Lon dropped out of school to help take care of her and his younger siblings. And this is the time that he really developed his dramatic skills. So for 3 years, Lon would reenact the events of the day for his mom through mime and movement. At age 14, it was time for Lon to help support the family. He got a summer job as a tour guide at Pikes Peak, and later that year became a prop boy at the Opera House where his brother was stage managing. Lon got his real start in the industry in 1901 when he toured the U.S. with a play that he co-wrote called The Little Tycoon. While on tour in Oklahoma City, Lon met Frances Cleveland Creighton, who went by Cleva, and she joined the play as a chorus girl. In newspaper reviews of the play, Lon is consistently praised for his comedy that left audiences in stitches, and Cleva gets mentioned for her sweet voice. The two started dating, and in 1906 they had a son, Creighton Toll Chaney. But you'll probably know him better today as Lon Chaney Jr. I heard a pretty miraculous story about Lon Chaney Jr.'s birth. Lon and Cleva were in Belle Isle Lake staying in a small cabin, and they were with Maddie Creighton, Cleva's mom, when Lon Chaney Jr. started coming prematurely, and Maddie helped deliver him, but it looked like he wasn't going to make it. They were struggling to resuscitate him, and Lon, just, sinking on his feet, rushed the baby outside and dunked him in the icy water, and it worked. It startled the baby awake, and he started crying, and everything was okay. And I just can't imagine the fear and then joy that Lon Chaney must have been feeling in that moment. Lon worked a regular job for a while, but he missed the stage and he wanted to go back to performing. In 1910, he and the family picked up and moved out to California. Lon started stage managing and acting and choreographing, while Cleva became a cabaret singer. In these years, I hear some stories from Cleva, and I kind of wonder if maybe she suffered from postpartum depression. By some accounts, she thought that when Lon Chaney dipped their son in the lake to try to revive him, that she thought that he was trying to kill him, and she fell into a deep depression and she wouldn't work with her husband anymore. Other stories tell of an affair that Lon may have discovered her having with a bartender. Either way, in 1913, during the opening night of a show at the Majestic, Cleva attempts suicide by drinking mercury dichloride backstage and then running out from the wings. She survives, but her vocal cords are destroyed, and she's never able to sing again. The next year, she and Lon Chaney divorce, and the scandal pushes him out of the theater and really marks the start of his transition into film. Lon Chaney's first film is disputed, but by 1918, he'd been in over 100 movies for Universal. When they wouldn't give him the raise that he wanted, he went freelance. His big break came later that year, playing the villain in a movie called Riddle Gone, and the following year in a movie called The Miracle Man. He once said that the stories he wished to tell were stories of self-sacrifice or renunciation. Lon became known for his dedication to his roles, not afraid to suffer to capture the essence of the character or the scene. The other thing Lon became known for was his skill with makeup. It really set him apart at a time when makeup wasn't yet too prominent in the industry. You might add a mustache to denote a villain, something like that, but that was about it. Movie studios didn't really have makeup departments yet, so actors were just expected to do their makeup themselves. Lon Chaney started doing intricate makeup on himself for roles. He had a tackle box, like what fishermen would use, filled with makeup and tools and string and more. He could disguise or disfigure his face, sometimes even using makeup to play more than one character in the same movie. He became known as the Man of 1,000 Faces. Here's my Aunt Carla talking about him.
Well, of course, he was such an artist. He had this tremendous makeup, and he would do it himself. He was a very extraordinary personality. It was wonderful, very gifted.
One great example of his work can be found in a Universal classic, The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Released in 1923, The Hunchback is one of Universal's biggest early films. I actually never knew before that Lon Chaney was initially the one who acquired the rights to Hunchback. For the movie, he wore a hump and a harness that weighed more than 20 pounds, and he used cotton and chemicals to build up his cheeks and create that grotesque look. And going back to when I said how he would suffer for his roles, for this movie, he used a putty on his eyes that resulted in him needing glasses for the rest of his life. Another great example of his skill and dedication that's perhaps an even more famous role is 1925's Phantom of the Opera. He used chemicals and string and glue and fake teeth to create his terrifying look. The reveal in that movie is probably one of the most iconic scenes in all of film history. Perhaps due to the incident with Clevo, which drove him from the theater, Lon Chaney chose to lead a very private life. He once said, "Between pictures, there is no Lon Chaney," and that his career was devoted to keeping people from knowing him. He very rarely gave interviews, and because changing his appearance was such a big part of so many roles, he could often go out in public without being recognized. Lon Chaney married again in 1914 or 1915 to Hazel Hastings, who was a chorus girl. They very much stayed out of the spotlight, but they remained married until Lon's death. Lon Chaney worked pretty steadily through the 1920s, but when sound film came in, he initially held out. He wanted to make sure that he really understood the new technology, so he started visiting sound rooms and experimenting with mixing and recording. His first sound film was called The Unholy Three. It's easy to forget that most of the world had never heard his voice before, so they were clamoring to hear it in this movie. And there's no way that they were disappointed, because not only did he pick the film for its dark and powerful plot, but he also picked it because his character had 5 distinctly different voices. And naturally, he was immediately dubbed the Man of 1,000 Voices. This would have solidified Lon Chaney's place in the world of talkies, but The Unholy Three would be the only sound film Lon Chaney ever did. In the winter of 1929, Lon got pneumonia, followed by bronchial lung cancer. And this was just made worse when he worked on a film with artificial snow that gave him a throat infection. On August 26th of 1930, Lon Chaney passed away at just 47 years old. I have so many questions about what Lon Chaney's career might have been if he had just lived longer. Like, he was Todd Browning's first choice to play Dracula. What if he saw that through? Would that have set off a chain of events that would have changed the entire universe of horror that we know today? Would we have a Bela Lugosi? Would we have a Boris Karloff? There's no doubt that Lon Chaney's talent was unparalleled, but I do think that there's something about his air of mystery that allowed his legacy to stay so strong for so long. It was so hard to find an interview or a substantive article about him, even going back to his theater days. They would say, "You know Lon, you know his talent," but then they wouldn't really say anything else. So if you know of any good interviews or videos or articles about him, definitely put those in the comments below and let me know what your favorite Lon Chaney characters are. Don't forget to check out my Patreon where I've got bonus content plus pictures and memorabilia from my family's private collection. And follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Antonia Carlotta. Thank you. Bye.